Good morning, class. Good morning. Settle down, notebooks out, please. Today, we are starting a new chapter. And listen, this one is very, very important for your board exams. The making of a global world. So I want your full attention, huh?
Okay, students, settle down. Settle down. Last bench, yes, you two. Stop talking. Now, I know the title, The Making of a Global World, sounds a little complicated, no? But don't you worry, we are going to make this a very simple story. It's actually very interesting.
So, my first question to all of you is, what is this globalization? You must have heard this word on TV, in the newspaper, everywhere, right? So what do you think? Is it a new thing? Something that only started recently with the internet and all? Let's find out.
You see, globalization is not some big, difficult idea. It's all around you, in your daily life. Just look at the mobile phone in your hand. The chip inside, maybe it's from Taiwan, the camera from South Korea, and the whole thing is put together, assembled, in China. Or the pizza you love to eat. The cheese might be from Italy, the olives from Spain. The jeans you are wearing right now, check the label later. I bet it says made in Bangladesh or made in Vietnam. Even when your uncle or your cousin goes to work in the USA or Canada, that is also part of this global world. You see, it's everywhere.
All right, so if globalization is happening now, when did it all start? To understand today's global world, we have to go back in time. We have to travel back to the 19th century. Now, economists say the economy back then was built on three main flows. Just think of them as three big rivers that connected the whole world.
Now, this is a very important point. You must remember these three flows for the exam. First, we have the flow of goods. This is simply trade, buying and selling things. For example, wheat from America was sent all the way to Britain to feed the people there. Second is the flow of labor. That means people moving for work. Think about it. Around 50 million Europeans moved to America and Australia looking for jobs. And third, the flow of capital. Now, capital means money for investment. For example, British money was used to build railways in other countries, including India. So, what are the three flows? Goods, labor, and capital. Remember these three words. They were like the engine of the global world.
Now, listen very, very carefully. This is a very important point for your exam. The Corn Laws. What were they? It's very simple. Don't get confused. These were laws in Britain that stopped cheaper grain or corn from coming in from other countries. So why would they do that? Well, it was to protect their own rich farmers and landowners. Simple. So please mark this with a star in your notebook. Corn Laws.
Okay, so what happened when these corn laws were finally removed? It started a chain reaction. Just look here. First, lots and lots of cheap food started coming into Britain from America and Australia. Now, what happens when cheap food comes in? Correct. The local British agriculture collapsed. Thousands and thousands of farmers lost their jobs. So, what could they do? They had no work. So many people had to migrate. They had to move to the cities or even to other countries to find work. Now, do you see the connection? The flow of goods, the cheap food, directly caused a flow of labor, the migrating farmers. You see? Everything is connected.
And just think about it. All this movement of food, of people, across thousands and thousands of kilometers of ocean, how is all this even possible back then? The answer is one word, class: technology. Technology was the real game changer. It made this whole globalization process much faster and much cheaper.
Let me give you a very simple example to help you understand. Back then, in the 19th century, what was the latest technology? Things like railways, big steamships, and the telegraph, for sending messages. Now, compare that to today. What do we have? We have flights, giant container ships that carry thousands of containers, and of course, we have the internet. The technology is different, yes, but the purpose is exactly the same: to connect the world.
Okay, now for a brilliant example of technology's role. And listen carefully. This is a favorite question in the board exams: the meat trade. In the beginning, they used to ship live animals all the way from America to Europe. Just imagine. It was very expensive and many animals would get sick or die on the way. So meat was a luxury food, only for the rich people. But then came a game-changing invention: refrigerated ships, basically ships with giant freezers. So now they could slaughter the animals in America or Australia, freeze the meat, and then ship it. And what was the result? The price of meat dropped so much that even the poor people in Europe could now afford to eat meat regularly. You see how just one piece of technology changed the diet of millions of people? It's amazing, no?
Okay, class. So far, this story of globalization sounds quite nice, no? Cheaper food for everyone, new technology, new jobs. But remember, every coin has two sides. For many parts of the world, especially for countries like ours, India, and for the continent of Africa, this story had a very, very dark side. And that dark side has a name: colonialism.
Just look at this. In the late 19th century, the big European powers, Britain, France, Belgium, Germany, they all sat down together at a meeting in Berlin. And you know what they did? They divided the entire continent of Africa among themselves. They just took a map and drew straight lines on it. Can you imagine? It's like your neighbors getting together and drawing a line through your house and saying, okay, this bedroom is mine and that kitchen is yours, without even asking you. That is exactly what they did to Africa.
And then, something terrible happened. A disease called rinderpest, which is a cattle plague. It spread like wildfire across Africa. Now look at this number on the screen. In some parts of Africa, it killed 90% of the cattle. 90%! Can you even imagine the devastation? For African people, their cattle were everything: their wealth, their food, their livelihood.
Now, listen very carefully. This is another one of those chain reactions, and this is very, very important for your long answer questions. So first step, the cattle died. This means the African people lost all their wealth and their source of food. Second step, their livelihoods were completely destroyed. They became very poor and desperate. And third, this is when the European colonizers took advantage of the situation. They forced the African people, who now had nothing left, to work for wages in their mines and on their plantations. So you see, a cattle disease was actually used as a weapon by the colonizers to gain control over the entire population.
From Africa, let's now come to our own country, India. And here we find another dark chapter of this story: indentured labor. Please, everyone, write this definition down. Indentured labor was a system where workers were bound by a contract, usually for 5 years. On paper, it looked like a fair job contract, but in reality, it was a new system of slavery. Please remember this phrase, a new system of slavery. This definition is very, very important for your exam.
So where did these Indian laborers go? They were sent far away, to the Caribbean islands like Trinidad and Guyana, to Mauritius, to Fiji, Malaya, Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, and even within India to the tea plantations in Assam. Most of these poor laborers were taken from places like eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and parts of Tamil Nadu. This is the real history behind why you see so many people of Indian origin in these countries today. You know, when you watch cricket, the West Indies team, you see players with names like Chanderpaul or Sarwan. This history, this is where it comes from.
Okay, now let's focus specifically on India's role in this whole global system. It was a very crucial role, very important, but it was also a very painful and complex one for us.
Just look at this chart carefully. Before the British came, India was world famous for its fine cotton textiles. We were the big exporters. In the year 1800, we had a 30% share of the entire world market. 30%! But now, look what happened under British rule. By the 1870s, our share fell to below 3%. Can you believe it? Our industries were destroyed. So instead of exporting beautiful finished cloth, we were forced to just export raw cotton, which was then sent to the factories in Britain.
Okay, now this next part is a little complex, so please don't get confused. I will explain it very simply. Look at the table. Britain wanted to buy a lot of tea from China. Tea was very popular there, but China didn't want to buy anything from Britain. So Britain had a problem: how to pay for the tea. So they found a clever but very cruel solution. They forced Indian farmers to grow opium. Then they smuggled this opium from India and sold it illegally in China. And the money they got from selling opium, they used that money to buy the tea from China. It was a trade triangle, you see, and it was built on addiction, with India stuck right in the middle.
This brings us to another very important concept for your exam, trade surplus. Now, what is it? Don't worry, it's very simple. Let me give you an example. Imagine you sell your friend a pen for 10 rupees and you buy an eraser from him for only 2 rupees. So you have earned 8 rupees more than you spent, right? That 8 rupees is your surplus. Simple, no? Britain did the exact same thing with India, but on a massive scale. They sold their expensive factory-made goods to us, and in return, they bought very cheap raw materials from India. So Britain always had a huge trade surplus with India. This means they were always earning much more money from us than they were spending on us.
Okay, chalo. Pencils down, everyone. Pencils down. The chapter is mostly done now. So, before we finish, let's do a quick revision of all the main points. I want everyone to listen very, very carefully now. These are the points you must have on your fingertips for the final exam.
Okay, these points you see here, this is exam gold. You absolutely must remember them. Let's go through them one by one. First, globalization worked through 3 flows. What were they? Goods, labor, and capital. Correct. Second, the invention of refrigerated ships completely changed the food trade, especially meat. Third, the rinderpest disease destroyed African livelihoods and was used to force them into wage labor. Fourth, indentured labor was called a new system of slavery. Fifth, colonialism turned India into a supplier of raw materials for Britain. And finally, number 6, Britain used its trade surplus with India, basically the money it made from us, to balance its trade with other countries. In simple words, India was paying Britain's bills.
So before the bell rings, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. We've seen that the 19th century global world was built on these amazing flows of goods, labor, and capital. And yes, it created a lot of wealth and progress, but only for some people. So my question to you is this: who truly paid the price for all this progress? I want you to think about this. We will discuss it in the next class. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you, class.